They say marriage is the grave of love, but for me, marriage was the grave that buried my entire fortune and my self-respect. I once believed that love would resolve all difficulties, that sincerity would be met with sincerity. But I was wrong. Some relationships are built on sand, and when the storm hits, all that remains is brazenness, greed, and cold calculation. Have you ever felt used, turned into an unlimited ATM for your loved ones? Have you ever experienced betrayal by the very partner you trusted most? Have you ever had to stand at a crossroads between love and harsh truth, only to realize that sometimes the only way to win is to pretend to lose? Join me, Noah Thorne, as I relive those days. Days when I had to personally orchestrate the biggest play of my life, to expose a cruel truth, to reclaim justice, and most importantly, to win back my precious son from a whirlpool of deceit and greed. I'm Noah Thorne, an ambitious software engineer in Silicon Valley. I started my career from a small rented room in San Jose with an old computer and a big dream. After years of relentless work with sleepless nights coding and seemingly endless unsuccessful startup projects, my software company, Innovate Core Solutions, finally achieved significant success. We secured large contracts with leading tech corporations and the company's value soared. Money wasn't the ultimate goal, but it brought me confidence and the ability to care for those I loved. Then I met Maya Chen, my wife, at a tech event in San Francisco. She was a talented freelance graphic designer with flowing curly hair, large expressive eyes, and a perpetual smile. Maya had a gentle beauty with a touch of elegant Asian charm. I loved Maya with a sincere, selfless love. I was drawn to her innocence, her cheerfulness, and the interesting stories about life in California that she shared. Maya was the youngest daughter in an immigrant Asian family in San Jose, a family with traditional roots but a significant emphasis on material wealth. Her parents were retired factory workers, and her elder brother, Ken Chen, ran small businesses that were rarely successful, often falling into debt due to risky ventures. Right from when we started dating, I sensed a bit of financial pressure from Maya's family. During our meetings, Maya's parents often reiterated about the talented young engineer, about my bright future. Ethan is truly brilliant, so young and already owning his own company in Silicon Valley. Maya's mother would often say, her voice full of admiration mixed with a hint of calculation, looking at me as if I were a walking gold mine. I didn't pay much attention, assuming it was normal affection from parents who wanted their daughter to have a stable life. My love for Maya blinded me to the first signs. After we got married, the financial pressures began to become clearer, like tiny cracks on a seemingly solid wall. First, it was the cost of furniture for our new mansion in Palo Alto. "Just buy the best kind, Noah has money," Maya said, and I happily agreed, wanting my wife to live in the most comfortable space. Next came small amounts of money. Mom, Maya needs urgent cash for car repairs. Dad, Maya wants an expensive private comprehensive health checkup, and then larger, harder to control sums. Ken, Maya's brother, was the one who came to me most often. He constantly faced difficulties in his business, repeatedly asking me for loans to invest in promising startups, resolve legal issues, or even pay off credit card debt from overspending. I lent him tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars more than once, and even helped him start new companies, investing in projects I thought had potential. I even arranged for a few of my wife's relatives who lacked suitable qualifications or experience to work at my company, even though their abilities weren't truly outstanding, solely because Maya begged, please help them get stable jobs, their family after all. Maya, my wife, seemed to either not see or deliberately ignore the enormous financial burden her family was placing on my shoulders. Every time I gently brought up Ken asking for money again, or the unaccounted expenses from her family, Maya immediately sided with her family. "Don't be so calculating, their family, honey. Ken is having a hard time, so I have to help him. You have money, you can help," she said, her tone firm, making me feel petty and stingy. She believed I had unlimited financial capacity, and my helping her family was obvious, a duty of a successful son-in-law. Maya's love for her family seemed greater than her empathy for her husband, who was working tirelessly day and night to shoulder everything. I had once hoped that when our precious son Leo was born, everything would change. A child would be a strong bond, making Maya realize where her true family was, where she should place her trust and responsibility. Leo was everything to me. The boy brought light and joy into my life, which was gradually being eroded. I tried to spend time with him, play with him, read to him, and envision a better future for him. A future not dominated by materialistic calculations. But my illusions quickly vanished. As Leo grew a little older, Maya began talking about wanting him to attend expensive international private schools in Menlo Park, wanting to buy another vacation villa in Lake Tahoe, wanting a more luxurious life, commensurate with the status of a tech CEO. Everything revolved around material possessions and the increasing demands from her family. Ken even suggested I invest bigger in another risky business venture in Las Vegas with promises of huge profits to secure Leo's future so he wouldn't fall behind his friends. I hesitated, my gut telling me something was wrong, but Maya pushed relentlessly, saying, "This is a life-changing opportunity for the whole family, you have to seize it." At that moment, I realized that Maya's love for me seemed tied to my financial ability, more like a business contract than a marital relationship. Her family didn't see me as a member, but as a money-making machine, an unlimited source for their endless needs and ambitions. Disappointment and pain gradually consumed me. I felt used, disrespected. I had sacrificed too much, not just money, but also time, effort, and dedication, only to receive burden, lies, and indifference. But the most painful thing was Maya's blindness. She didn't realize that what she was doing, what she was enabling for her family, was slowly killing my love and trust, suffocating our small family's happiness. I no longer recognized the woman I had once passionately loved. She had turned into a stranger, someone who only thought of her family regardless of her husband's feelings, of the man who had sacrificed so much for her. I had reached my breaking point. I knew I had to do something, not just to protect myself, but also to protect my son Leo's future from this greedy cycle from a family that only cared about money and fleeting prestige. Day by day, the demands from Maya's family became more unreasonable and brazen. They didn't just ask for money, they considered it their inherent right. Maya's mother frequently complained about needing money to upgrade their lifestyle, buying expensive designer items in Beverly Hills or hosting lavish parties to show off to her friends in the Chinese community. "Ethan's family has money, just spend freely, dear," I heard her tell Maya over the phone, and my heart twisted. Maya's father began demanding I buy him a brand new luxury SUV, like a Cadillac Escalade, because driving an old car like this embarrasses the CEO's son-in-law. But the climax was Ken. He was always a bottomless financial pit. After I helped him open a small chain of coffee shops in San Jose, I thought everything would stabilize. But he quickly squandered the money on uncontrolled spending habits and delusional investments like pouring money into risky cryptocurrency markets or ghost startup projects. One day, Ken came to me with a pale face, saying he had gotten into a huge gambling debt in Las Vegas amounting to nearly $500,000, and if he didn't pay it back quickly, people would come after him. "Noah, just save me this one time, I promise it's the last, I'll never let you down again," Ken pleaded, his voice trembling, tears streaming down his face. I looked at Ken, seeing the desperation and the familiar emptiness of his false promises. I knew that if I helped him this time, there would be a next time and another. But seeing Maya's worried expression as Ken pleaded, I softened. "Ken is my brother, please help him, honey," Maya begged again, her eyes glistening. "If something happens to him, I won't be able to live. You're the pillar of the family, you have to help." In that moment, I suddenly realized I was trapped in a vicious cycle. No matter what I did, how much I gave, Maya's family would never have enough. They would drain me until I had nothing left. And Maya, my wife, became the bridge for that abuse. She wasn't a bad person, but her blind love for her biological family and perhaps her fear of being rejected by them if she didn't comply made her indifferent and unable to discern right from wrong, unable to stand by me. I decided I had to change, not by flatly refusing or getting angry, but by a bolder plan, a grand charade to expose their true nature. I needed to make them clearly see that they only cared about my money, not me, not my happiness, and especially not Leo's future. This was the only way for me to break free from this trap and win back my son. This plan was not easy. I had to orchestrate it meticulously, making everything appear incredibly real without a hint of suspicion. I started by tightening my personal spending, stopping the purchase of luxury items, cutting back on expensive trips to Hawaii or Europe. Maya started to notice, but she simply assumed I was temporarily short on cash due to a downturn in the tech market. Then I began to leak information about Innovate Core Solutions' difficult business situation. I instructed my senior managers, who completely trusted me, and this plan, as I had clearly explained its purpose, was to protect my son's assets and future, to issue internal reports about fake revenue declines, canceled contracts, and how the company was streamlining operations and painfully cutting staff by 30%. I even proactively met with several reputable journalists from major financial newspapers like the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg, indirectly feeding them secret information about the company being on the verge of crisis, struggling against larger competitors like Google or Amazon. I also had some friends in the investment community pretend to dump the company's stock on the market to create a domino effect. Rumors began to spread like wildfire in the tech and financial circles of Silicon Valley. Innovate Core Solutions' stock price on NASDAQ began to plummet significantly, even though in reality the company was still operating very efficiently. My major partners under my direction also began to express deep concern and reevaluate contracts that were in negotiation. Everything unfolded exactly as I had planned, step by step convincingly. I wanted them to believe that I, Noah Thorne, the tech mogul of yesterday, was now on the verge of bankruptcy and my company was in a free fall. And then the moment I had been waiting for arrived. I knew that after all the money and sacrifice, there was only one thing that could expose their true nature. It was when they thought I had nothing left to exploit. One evening when Maya's entire family was gathered at our Palo Alto mansion celebrating Maya's father's birthday, a lavish party with fine wine and imported lobster, I decided to make the final move in my play. The living room was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and sycophantic remarks about my success. Leo was sound asleep upstairs, completely unaware of the drama unfolding below. I pretended to receive an urgent phone call from the company's board of directors. I walked out onto the balcony where everyone could still hear my voice, but not too clearly. My voice trembled, filled with despair. What, this quarter's financial report? Such a heavy loss. Tens of millions of dollars. No way. How many big contracts did we lose? The partner from Japan also pulled out, the stock plummeting uncontrollably, closing the Los Angeles branch. Massive layoffs up to 30%. It's over. Innovate Core won't survive. I hung up, walked back into the living room with a dazed expression, my eyes red as if I had been crying. Everyone, Innovate Core is facing a serious crisis. We're about to lose everything. My voice trailed off as if I was trying to suppress immense pain. All major contracts canceled, projects stalled, stock plummeting catastrophically. The company is on the verge of bankruptcy, perhaps even actual bankruptcy. We'll lose everything: this house, the investments in Ken's projects, the funds provided to the family. It will all vanish. The atmosphere in the room solidified. The clinking of glasses stopped, smiles faded. Silence lasted for a few seconds, heavy and suffocating. Then a voice filled with skepticism and anger rang out. No way, Ethan, you're always so smart. How could you go bankrupt? Are you lying to us? It was Maya's mother, her voice trembling not out of concern for me, but out of fear for the assets and privileges about to be lost. Ken immediately jumped up, his face turning from relaxed to ashen with fear. What about my Las Vegas debt? You said you'd pay it for me. You can't go bankrupt. You have to find a way. Those guys are looking for me. He roared, his voice full of panic and selfishness, completely unconcerned with the crisis situation I had just reported, only thinking of himself. In a few short minutes, the true face of Maya's family was laid bare. Not a word of comfort, not a pat on the shoulder, not a single question about my condition or the company's. All they cared about was their money, the investments I had poured into them, and the luxurious life they were enjoying. They looked at me not as a son-in-law, a husband in distress, but as an ATM that had just stopped working. Maya, my wife, whom I once believed would be by my side no matter what, was no better. She looked at me with frightened eyes, then turned to her parents as if waiting for an explanation, some miracle from me. Noah, tell me the truth. Are you joking? What are we going to do now? You can't let us lose everything. I can't live without comforts, she said, her voice filled with panic without an ounce of empathy for what I was supposedly facing. Oh my God, little Leo, international school, vacation villa in Lake Tahoe. Will it all vanish? Maya's mother muttered, as if her lavish dreams were dissolving into thin air, her hand trembling as she clutched her designer handbag. So you won't be able to lend me money anymore? Your company won't have positions for our family members anymore? Ken questioned, his tone demanding, with no attempt to hide his disappointment and anger that the money source had dried up. So who's going to take care of me now? Who's going to save me from them? I looked at them, my heart cold. Not a shred of humanity, not a hint of concern. Only naked greed and selfishness were evident. My tears flowed not from acting but from the real pain in my heart. I had loved and trusted these people, sacrificed everything for them, even carried their future on my shoulders. But now, when faced with difficulty, they had revealed their true colors. They didn't love me. They only loved my money. A few days later, the call I received was not one of comfort, but from Maya's parents. Noah, you should consider a divorce. Our Maya cannot live a life of deprivation. Furthermore, you no longer have the financial ability to provide for her and little Leo according to the standards she deserves. Do you want the boy to suffer? Maya's mother's voice was cold, emotionless, as if discussing a business transaction. Maya, when I confronted her, was not much different. She avoided my gaze. Noah, I don't know what to do anymore. My family is very worried. My parents say I can't be with someone who no longer has financial means. I think we should separate for a while. Or maybe we should consider divorce. She said, her eyes distant without a trace of love or concern. She didn't ask what I needed, didn't ask if I was okay. She only thought about what she would lose, about the social standing she had lost. I asked her, "What about Leo? What about our love? All that we built together?" Maya was silent, bowing her head as if she didn't want to face the truth, but that silence said it all. I knew my play had succeeded. They had revealed their true colors. And now it was time for me to take the final step to reclaim justice for myself and my son. I needed to end this charade decisively so no one could hurt Leo further. News of Innovate Core Solutions' collapse quickly spread in the Silicon Valley tech and financial tabloids, as well as on forums and social media. I withdrew from tech events, stopped updating my LinkedIn status, creating a perfect facade of an entrepreneur struggling with bankruptcy. I even put my employees on temporary leave and kept only a small core team to maintain minimal operations to further enhance the authenticity of the charade. Maya's family completely bought into it. They began to keep their distance, even avoiding me as if I were a failure. Ken called day and night, urging me to find a way for his debt, not forgetting to add threats from the gangsters in Las Vegas. I simply said, "Figure it out yourself, I have nothing left. You should learn to face the consequences on your own." After a few weeks of the charade, when I felt everything was ripe, Maya officially filed for divorce. She demanded full custody of Leo and a large financial settlement from me based on the assets we had before my bankruptcy. She cited that I was no longer able to care for and raise Leo in the best environment because my career had collapsed and Leo would not live in good conditions if he stayed with me. I pretended to break down even further, saying I was too tired to fight and just wanted everything to end quickly. I even agreed to most of her requests during preliminary mediation sessions, including initial shared custody, but secretly arranged for me to have primary decision-making power over Leo's education and medical care. Maya and her family seemed very pleased, believing they had achieved everything without much effort. They thought I had lost everything, and this was their chance to salvage what was left. On the day of the court hearing, tension filled the courtroom at the Santa Clara County Superior Court. On Maya's side, there was a formidable lawyer from a prestigious law firm, along with her parents and Ken, all wearing triumphant expressions, awaiting the outcome like a bountiful harvest. I came alone, looking haggard, dressed simply like a man who had lost everything, exactly as I had prepared for my role. When it came time to argue over assets and custody, my lawyer, a sharp, dedicated, and highly professional woman named Sarah Miller, no relation to anyone from my past, stood up. "Your Honor, before proceeding with the asset division and custody procedures, we wish to present some crucial evidence regarding the true nature of this case." The entire courtroom fell silent. Maya's family began to murmur, but their faces were still confident, believing they had a sure victory. Lawyer Sarah began to project onto the large screen in the courtroom the actual financial reports of Innovate Core Solutions, newly signed contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars, charts showing exponential profit growth quarter by quarter, and a list of major investors who had just poured more capital into my company, including a globally renowned venture capital fund. She presented clearly and systematically that Innovate Core Solutions was not only not bankrupt, but was thriving unprecedentedly, even having recently expanded branches in Austin and Boston and planning to list its stock on the New York Stock Exchange in the near future. "Your Honor," Lawyer Sarah said, her voice clear, echoing throughout the courtroom, "the rumors of Innovate Core Solutions' collapse were entirely a deliberate market strategy by my client to disrupt competitors attempting to replicate our products. At the same time, it was also a small social experiment to test the loyalty and true nature of certain individuals in my client's personal life. And unfortunately, the results of this experiment have been crystal clear." My eyes swept across Maya's face, Maya's parents. They were rigid, their eyes wide with shock, as if they had just been struck by lightning. Their faces drained of color from triumphant to pale, then flushed red with anger and shame. Ken jumped up, intending to object, but was held back by Maya's lawyer and pulled back down into his seat. Lawyer Sarah continued to present evidence. "We have detailed bank statements, large and continuous money transfers from my client's account to Mr. Ken Chen's personal account, including undocumented loans totaling millions of dollars. We have emails, messages recording the constant urging by Ms. Maya Chen and her family, demanding my client spend money on lavish personal expenses unrelated to family expenditures. We also have evidence that Mr. Ken Chen abused these loans for gambling and illegal business activities in Las Vegas, incurring a massive debt and making threats against my client." She also presented convincing evidence that Maya did not have a stable job, often relied entirely on my income, and audio recordings of conversations between Maya and her family where they meticulously discussed draining my assets after the divorce, planning a luxurious life based on the settlement from me. And finally, Lawyer Sarah looked directly at Maya, her voice resolute. "We have strong evidence that Ms. Maya Chen was not financially or emotionally fit to raise the common child Leo. We have statements showing that Ms. Maya Chen frequently withdrew cash from the joint account for lavish personal expenses, buying designer goods, going to spas, while neglecting expenses for the child such as tuition fees, health insurance, or extracurricular activities. Meanwhile, my client Noah Thorne has always directly paid all essential and luxury expenses for Leo and has a solid financial capability to ensure the best educational future and life for his son, unaffected by materialistic calculations." The truth was laid bare, complete and undeniable. Maya slumped into her seat sobbing, but they were not tears of regret or heartbreak over a broken love, but of anger and humiliation that their plan had failed miserably. Ken collapsed, his head bowed, not daring to look at anyone, his face ashen. Maya's parents were stunned, unable to believe their ears, their eyes filled with resentment and disappointment directed at me. The judge, after reviewing all the evidence, rendered the verdict. Based on my stable financial capacity, my meticulous care and genuine concern for my child, along with clear evidence of financial abuse and Maya's lack of responsibility, the court decided to grant full sole custody of Leo to me, Noah Thorne. Regarding assets, the court also ruled that the money I had transferred to Maya's family throughout our marriage would be considered non-refundable gifts or my personal risky investments, not part of the marital assets to be divided. Maya would only receive a small initial support payment as stipulated by California state law and had no right to demand any further assets or compensation. The verdict resonated like a thunderclap to Maya's family. They were utterly devastated. I looked at Leo, my precious son, standing next to me, giving an innocent smile, his hand tightly holding mine. This battle finally I had won, not for money, but for the love of my son and for the truth that had been fairly exposed. I had protected my son's future from the pitfalls of greed. After the fateful court session, my life and Maya's family's lives completely diverged like two rivers flowing into separate oceans. For Maya's family, the exposed truth dealt a fatal blow to their reputation and lives. Ken Chen's massive gambling debt and illicit business dealings were quickly more widely exposed in financial circles and the Chinese community in San Jose. He was relentlessly pursued by creditors, forced to sell off all his assets, including the newly opened coffee shop chain. Ken had to move constantly, living in hiding to evade them. Ken's situation also greatly impacted Maya's parents. Their reputation in the community was severely affected. The relatives I had helped employ at my company were also laid off due to not meeting job requirements, and they too turned their backs on Maya's family once they learned the truth. This family no longer received any financial support from me and was forced to face reality, living a frugal life far from what they had once dreamed of and were accustomed to. As for Maya, she lost almost everything. Without a stable full-time job, as most of her projects came from my connections, and with her family now completely dependent on her. After I stopped providing support, she had to face the harsh reality there was no longer the ATM Noah Thorne to rely on. After the divorce, she had to move out of the Palo Alto mansion, renting a smaller apartment in a more modest area of San Jose where prices were more affordable. She tried to find work, but with unstable freelance experience and her financial dependence on her ex-husband having been exposed in court, finding a full-time graphic design position at large companies was not easy. Maya struggled with life, bearing endless complaints and nagging from her parents and brother, who were accustomed to the luxurious life I had provided. She tried to contact me a few times via email and messages, but I did not reply. I knew that she needed to stand on her own feet, face the consequences of the choices she had made. I held no hatred. I simply no longer wanted to be involved in a relationship, lacking respect and sincerity. A relationship where I was merely a tool for them to achieve their goals. As for me, after gaining full sole custody of Leo, I poured all my heart into caring for my son and running the company. Leo, my son, was my greatest comfort and the motivation for me to overcome everything. He is intelligent, bright, and always brings innocent laughter into my life. I ensure Leo has a fulfilling life both materially and emotionally. I spend more time with him, taking him to Golden Gate Park, reading to him every night, building robot models together, and teaching him the values of honesty, independence, hard work, and love, things I realized are more precious than any material wealth. I want my son to grow up with a kind heart and a thoughtful mind, not obsessed with money. Innovate Core Solutions continued to thrive, exceeding all competitors' expectations. The crisis charade not only helped me expose the true nature of Maya's family, but also served as a valuable lesson for the company regarding information control, security, and evaluating partnerships. I learned to set clear boundaries in both personal and professional relationships. I also became more cautious about trusting others and always prioritized transparency in all transactions. I still live in the Palo Alto mansion, but it is no longer a symbol of ostentation, but a warm home filled with the laughter of my son and me and friendly, loyal staff. I no longer sought a new romantic relationship. I had been hurt too deeply, and I realized that my happiness didn't necessarily have to depend on a partner. My happiness lies in watching Leo grow every day and dedicating myself to my work and in creating real value for society. I began dedicating significant time and finances to charitable activities, especially sponsoring and advising funds that support orphaned or underprivileged children in Silicon Valley and surrounding areas. I wanted to use a part of my wealth to help those less fortunate, to create opportunities that I once thought my unborn child had, my not chosen divorce could have had. I believe that giving wholeheartedly is the way to find true peace in the soul, the way to fill the voids left by betrayal. I'm no longer the Noah Thorne of old, the man caught in the whirlwind of money and others' expectations. I've become a more mature, more resilient man. And most importantly, I've found that my worth isn't in the assets I possess, but in what I've learned, what I've done to protect my true happiness and my son's. The scar in my heart is still there, but it's no longer a gnawing pain. It's a reminder of life's most valuable lesson, that greed can destroy everything, and the truth, no matter how cruel, will eventually be exposed. A few years later, I happened to run into Sarah Miller, the lawyer who helped me with my divorce. She was still sharp, but with an added sense of calm. We occasionally chatted, exchanging thoughts on work and life. She became a friend, a trustworthy confidant. I don't know where the future will lead me, whether I'll find new love. But I know one thing for sure: I will never again let money or anyone's expectations control my life and my son's life. My life and Leo's are now built on a much more solid foundation: sincerity, honesty, and unconditional love. My story. Noah Thorne's story is a cautionary tale about relationships built on material foundations and the absence of sincerity. It shows that sometimes blindness in love can lead to unforeseen consequences, not only for oneself, but also for those around us. And most importantly, this story proves that when pushed to the limit, people can find the strength to face the truth, to expose manipulations, and to reclaim control of their lives. Would you dare to face the truth, no matter how cruel, to protect the values you truly cherish? What are your thoughts on Noah's decision and the ending of this story? Was he too cruel to fake bankruptcy, to expose his wife's family's true nature? Or was it the only way for him to free himself and protect his son? Leave your comments below and share your feelings about this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exciting and dramatic stories. Thank you for listening to my story. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.